Okay, gotta talk about something here that actually pertains to also no Israel mention, which was crazy. Um, it's not the worst. That was not the worst interview. I will say. Making up for Jake Tapper's interview, yeah. So one of the pieces of discussion here is one, how impossible it is for Zoran to accomplish his policies, and maybe even how scary it is. I'm going to talk about Brad Lander and Jake Tapper in a second, but I want to make a point clear here. Okay? When Zoran is when the assessments are coming in from the commentariat about Zoran, a big thing that a lot of people in mainstream outlets are focusing on is, oh, he uses social media. He used so much social media. It's cute. It's fascinating. He worked really hard. He was really stubborn, right? He's handsome. He's attractive. He's charismatic. And a lot of that moves away from the actual policies. And the only time when they actually talk about his messaging discipline and his policies is when they're talking about how scary the implementation of said policies would look like, or how impossible it is to actually push for these policies. And I obviously have experienced something similar in my world as a political commentator. Whenever I've gotten these articles, these puff pieces written, or any sort of like analysis about why I'm so successful, right? Especially because in the immediate aftermath of the Democrat defeat, Democrats were desperately looking for, how the Republicans won. And a part of that autopsy was to find like the Joe Rogan of the left. And people kept pointing to me and saying, you're the Joe Rogan of the left. You're the Joe Rogan of the left. And all of those puff pieces and those profiles and all of that analysis often primarily focused on the way I look and the way I carry myself. The policies that I advocate for, my belief system, the things that I talk about was always secondary. I'm beginning to realize that this might be deliberate. Because at first I thought, oh no, this is just like a more approachable way to talk about this thing. That it's just like the aesthetics. Because I'm not saying that your aesthetics and the way you carry yourself don't matter. They of course matter. Of course they do. Zoran's charm, his charisma, his looks certainly play a role in this, for sure. But what a lot of people in the liberal side, a lot of people in mainstream media fail to understand or are deliberately avoiding talking about is that these are fucking policies that are popular. Because this is what I kept talking about anytime someone would come to me with, what did the Democrats do wrong? I kept reiterating that it was actually not a messaging gap or a outlet that they didn't go to, even though that certainly played a role in this. But it was more so that the messages that were being put out were not being received positively by the population. And the example I always used was Kamala Harris unveiling her comprehensive package, right? What she thinks she's going to run on. And there was nothing definable there. There was nothing that was tangible. There was nothing that you could like associate with an immediate solution to an immediate problem that Americans were broadly experiencing. As a matter of fact, the only good policy that she came out with right out of the gate was to tackle price gougers, right? To go after price gougers. And she dropped that very quickly. Okay? And I kept reiterating this point that it's not just about finding a Joe Rogan of the left. It's actually about the message. And the example I used was that when Kamala Harris unveiled her policies, and then they spent $30 million in the Pennsylvania TV market, her approval did not go up. The polls did not show a significant bump after a major faucet of advertising in her favor. This, at the time, for me, was an indication that people were not responding to the message. So you can't actually be everywhere all at once with a shitty policy that people don't like or people don't care for. It's not about being in front of people. It's about what you are going in front of people with. The policies of each individual candidate in the Democratic Party is far more important than what kind of media they're doing and how they're doing this media, how they're going out and going on podcasts and things like that, or going on mainstream media and things like that. It doesn't matter. It's secondary. But for a lot of these guys, they only focus on that as though it is the primary focus, as though that is the major problem. Chuck Schumer just wrote an entire book on how the left is anti-Semitic. None of these people are confused or not listening. You're not on the team. I mean, you're saying you're not on the team, but Zahran has won the Democratic mayoral race. And a lot of these outlets came to me and still do come to me to ask, like, what do you think is going on? So clearly they're at least somewhat curious. Caroline's point here was correct. The fact that the takeaway from liberal influencers and pundits is social media campaigns equals winning elections completely ignores that Zahran won because he is unabashedly populist and offered voters a progressive platform that is popular. People are tired of establishment centrist Dems offering them nothing of substance, and no amount of TikToks will change that. This is the issue. This is the $1 million problem that people like myself offer for free as advice. It's there for the taking. And yet, the Democrats, for one reason or another, seemingly refuse to understand that.